The soldiers jumped out using parachutes. The troops leaped from the aircraft, deploying parachutes. The author was taken aback by the reader's cynicism. The writer was startled by the skeptical attitude of the audience. She peeled the apple and cut it into cubes. She removed the apple's skin and diced it into small cubes. The police elicited a confession from the suspect. Law enforcement extracted an admission of guilt from the suspect. They had a conventional wedding at Gyeongbokgung. They held a traditional matrimonial ceremony at Gyeongbokgung Palace. He studied with zeal to achieve his dream. He pursued his aspirations with fervent dedication to his studies. If you don't submit the homework on time, you will fail. Failure to turn in assignments punctually will result in academic consequences. I dissected a dragonfly in biology class. I performed an anatomical examination of a dragonfly in my biology course. The nurse prepared a surgical knife and needle. The medical assistant arranged a scalpel and suture needle for the procedure. She is pretty. Nevertheless, I don't like her. She possesses beauty. However, I remain indifferent toward her. This year, the sales of snacks increased threefold. The snack industry witnessed a threefold surge in sales this year. One of us has committed a crime. A member among us has engaged in unlawful activity. Thanks to the elimination of fine dust, the air has improved. Due to the reduction of particulate matter, air quality has enhanced. She works as an apprentice at the beauty salon. She serves as a trainee in a cosmetology establishment. The mechanic completely dismantled the car engine. The technician fully disassembled the vehicle's motor. In this river, bass are caught more than mullets. In this waterway, bass are more frequently fished than mullets. On Children's Day, the children went on an excursion to the Grand Park. On Children's Day, youngsters embarked on a field trip to the Central Park. I attribute his success to hard work. I credit his achievements to diligence and perseverance. These pants are too small, making them uncomfortable to wear. These trousers are undersized, causing discomfort when worn. Sneezing can propagate an epidemic. Nasal expulsion can facilitate the spread of infectious diseases. I park in the underground parking lot rather than on the ground. I prefer utilizing the subterranean parking facility instead of the open lot. We will proceed with the business as planned. We shall carry out the enterprise according to the initial blueprint. A skilled MC knows how to entertain the guests. An experienced host adeptly engages the audience. Bronze is an alloy formed by the combination of copper and tin. Bronze is a metallic blend composed of copper and tin. Countless bacteria are inhibiting our mouths. Numerous microorganisms inhabit and thrive within our oral cavity. Reproducing the author's work without permission is illegal. Unauthorized duplication of an author's creation constitutes a legal offense. The editor reviewed the author's manuscript. The publishing supervisor assessed the writer's draft. In the summer, food tends to rot quickly. Perishables decay at an accelerated rate during hot seasons. My grandfather, feeling senile, kept repeating the same words. My elderly grandfather, experiencing cognitive decline, frequently reiterated the same phrases. The specialty of this plastic surgery clinic is obesity treatment. The primary expertise of this cosmetic medical center lies in weight management procedures. The stalk of sweet potatoes is used for consumption. The stem of sweet potatoes is harvested and utilized as food. I have a dinner engagement with my friend today. I have a scheduled evening appointment with a companion today. The prognosis for the Korean economy is very good. The economic forecast for South Korea appears highly optimistic. Busan developed both commerce and industry together. The city of Busan simultaneously advanced trade and manufacturing. The rumor about him was predicated on no evidence. The speculation concerning him was based on unfounded claims. I prefer a compact camera to a larger one. I favor a portable camera over a bulky model. He succeeded in business through conjunction with his friend. He achieved commercial success by collaborating with his associate. She survived the war ordeal. She endured and overcame the hardships of wartime. If you underestimate your opponent, you could lose. Disregarding your adversary's capabilities might lead to defeat. These rubber gloves are elastic and stretch well. These latex gloves possess high flexibility and expand easily. During the holiday, the road became congested with many cars. Traffic on the roads became heavily jammed with vehicles during the holiday. The orator stepped onto the stage to give a speech. The public speaker ascended the platform to deliver an address. He tends to heedful advice from others. He is inclined to carefully consider the counsel of others. Gray is the intermediate color between black and white. Gray serves as the transitional shade bridging black and white. The wife spent a day anguished by the death of her husband. The widow endured a day of deep sorrow over her spouse's passing. Hindsight shows that I was wrong. Retrospectively, it becomes evident that my judgment was flawed. Excessive egotism in social life ruins relationships. Overindulgence in self-importance disrupts social connections. A spear and a shield are contradictory examples. A lance and a defensive barrier represent opposing concepts. The thick foliage blocks the strong sunlight. Dense vegetation obstructs the intensity of the sun's rays. I lost a lot of money every time I gambled. Each time I engaged in gambling, I suffered significant financial losses. Poverty and disaster dehumanize people. Destitution and calamity strip individuals of their humanity. The students attended the professor's lecture attentively. The pupils listened to the instructor's discourse with keen focus. The number of jobless people decreased due to economic recovery. The unemployed population dwindled as a result of financial resurgence. Health and financial well-being are prerequisites for happiness. Physical wellness and economic stability are essential foundations for joy. He decided to withdraw from the position of chairman. He opted to resign from his role as chairman. Our mother compassionated the homeless. Our mother showed deep sympathy for the unhoused individuals. Korea provided humanitarian aid to North Korea. South Korea extended relief assistance to North Korea on humanitarian grounds. Regardless of the price, I want to buy what I want. No matter the cost, I desire to purchase what appeals to me. This model is a refinement of the previous one. This design is an enhanced iteration of its predecessor. Merchants created a guild for mutual benefit. Traders established a cooperative alliance for shared prosperity. The teacher told us to underline important sentences. The instructor instructed us to emphasize key statements with an underline. The vendor in front of the school sells tteokbokki and fried foods. The street vendor near the school offers tteokbokki and assorted fried snacks. The implementation of the new policy was announced to everyone. The enforcement of the revised regulation was publicly disclosed. She visited China officially as a diplomat. She formally traveled to China in her capacity as an envoy. My supervisor highly assessed my presentation skills. My manager gave a strong evaluation of my oratory skills. The construction noise hindered their theater performance. The loud construction work disrupted their theatrical presentation. This region is good for farming because of the nice weather. The favorable climate makes this area ideal for agriculture. This program has a compatibility issue. This software encounters compatibility challenges. The hungry beggar gobbled the food without stopping. The starving vagrant devoured the meal in a frenzy. Traditional Korean houses have a sloping roof. Classic Korean homes feature an inclined rooftop. His speech was too long and became tedious. His prolonged address turned monotonous. I ate spoiled food and had diarrhea. Consuming contaminated food resulted in digestive distress. The copied document is a bit blurry, but still legible. The duplicated file appears slightly smudged but remains readable. Commercial buildings are prohibited in residential areas. Business establishments are restricted within housing zones. The tariff on imported cars is a tax. Duties on foreign automobiles constitute taxation. An aspiring musician practices hard. A budding artist devotes significant effort to honing their craft. The increase in employment rate is an indicative sign of economic recovery. The rise in job availability serves as a key indicator of financial resurgence. Don't disrupt your friend who is studying hard. Avoid interrupting your diligent friend during their studies. The pirates plundered the village to steal the treasure. The marauders raided the settlement to seize valuable riches. He sweats a lot after exercising and has much perspiration. He experiences excessive sweating post-workout. I couldn't anticipate my parents' opposition. I failed to foresee the resistance from my parents. He founded a factory that makes semiconductors. He established a manufacturing plant specializing in semiconductors. The police took the fingerprints from the glass. Law enforcement collected fingerprint evidence from the glass surface. This program encodes login information. This software encrypts user credentials for security. Yesterday, the new member had a tumultuous welcome ceremony. The newcomer received a raucous reception at the welcoming event. Success and failure solely depend on oneself. Triumph and defeat rest entirely upon personal efforts. There is a narrow pavement next to the wide driveway. A slim pedestrian walkway runs adjacent to the broad driveway. The circuit breaker cut off the electrical circuit for safety. The safety switch disconnected the power supply to prevent hazards. Nitrogen makes up 80% of the air. Atmospheric composition consists of approximately 80% nitrogen. He is the most diligent attendant in our store. He stands out as the most hardworking employee in our shop. I can't understand the torment I went through when I was young. I struggle to comprehend the anguish I endured in my youth. The strong wind snapped the branch in two. A powerful gust fractured the limb of the tree in half. She prepared spare food for the guests. She set aside extra provisions for the visitors. Global warming is destroying the ecology of the Arctic. Climate change is devastating the Arctic's delicate ecosystem. His speech drew an exclamation from the audience. His address evoked a reaction of amazement from the crowd. The Blue House announced it would reshuffle the cabinet. The presidential office declared a governmental cabinet reorganization. He made a song in collaboration with Susie. He composed a song in partnership with Susie. Political stability and progress are the people's hope. The citizens aspire for governance that ensures stability and advancement. It's too late to protest the new plan now. Objecting to the revised proposal at this stage is futile. The critic sharply criticized the politician. The analyst delivered a harsh critique of the statesman. He made a beeline for home as soon as school was over. He rushed straight home immediately after school ended. Water is an essential item to sustain life. Water is a fundamental necessity for the continuation of life. At work, coordination and cooperation are required. Synchronization and teamwork are essential in the workplace. A meteor fell to Earth, creating a crater. A celestial rock crashed onto the Earth's surface, forming an impact crater. Pottery is handled carefully because of its fragility. Ceramic ware is delicately managed due to its brittle nature. He helps others with his innate goodness. He assists others driven by his inherent kindness. Her lust for power is frightening. Her insatiable ambition for dominance is terrifying. The suspect was released due to scant evidence. The accused was freed because of insufficient proof. Preservatives are substances that prevent the spoilage of food. Food preservatives inhibit decomposition and extend shelf life. An intermittent shower made me grab my umbrella. The sporadic rainfall prompted me to carry my umbrella. The company allocated a lot of money to the new business. The corporation designated substantial funds for the emerging venture. Many sports facilities were destroyed by the earthquake. Numerous athletic centers suffered destruction due to the tremor. I take antidepressants because of my depression. I use mood stabilizers to manage my depressive condition. Thor heard a faint sound from the attic. Thor detected a barely audible noise emanating from the loft. Due to the epidemic, he was confined to a ward. The outbreak led to his isolation within a hospital ward. The acidity of a lemon makes my mouth water just thinking about it. The sourness of a lemon triggers salivation merely at the thought of it. The cosmic theory you mentioned is just a presumption. The astronomical hypothesis you referred to is merely speculative. The machine extracts oil from corn. The device processes corn to derive oil. He started to sob at the news of his friend's death. Upon hearing of his friend's passing, he broke into tears. I enjoy both domestic and international travel. I take pleasure in exploring both local and global destinations. He says the new law is unfair to the weak. He claims that the recent legislation discriminates against the vulnerable. The strange smell continued to itch my nostrils. The peculiar odor persistently irritated my nasal passages. The supervisor is responsible for everything in the factory. The overseer holds full accountability for all operations within the plant. The experiment was canceled due to a serious technical problem. The research trial was aborted because of a major engineering malfunction. Idealism and pragmatism are types of philosophy. Theoretical idealism and practical pragmatism represent different philosophical doctrines. The teacher scolded the disruptive student during class. The instructor reprimanded the misbehaving pupil amid the lesson. The activation code for the machine is included in the product. The device's activation key is embedded within the package. The explorer researched to decode the cryptic letter. The adventurer conducted an analysis to decipher the enigmatic message. I dug a pit with a shovel to plant flowers in the yard. I excavated a hole using a spade to cultivate flowers in the garden. He is fluent not only in English, but also in Chinese. He exhibits proficiency in both English and Mandarin. There was a movement to preserve Dokdo. An initiative emerged advocating for the conservation of Dokdo. He wants to renovate the old house. He intends to refurbish and modernize the aged residence. A streak of tears flowed down her cheek. A single tear trail ran down her face. The handwriting I wrote is almost illegible due to bad penmanship. My script is barely readable because of poor handwriting. She is easily identifiable by her red clothes. Her distinctive red attire makes her readily recognizable. His sullen expression shows that he is upset. His gloomy demeanor indicates his discontent. I bought a rare book at a second-hand bookstore. I purchased a scarce volume from a used bookshop. The human digestive system includes the mouth, stomach, and more. The human gastrointestinal tract comprises the mouth, stomach, and additional organs. The new project is very challenging for him. The recently assigned task poses a significant challenge for him. Her pet dog is as meek as a lamb. Her domesticated canine exhibits remarkable docility. The coachman skillfully drove the carriage on the street. The carriage driver expertly maneuvered the coach along the roadway. I held back my anger to maintain my dignity at the party. I restrained my temper to uphold my composure at the gathering. Corporal punishment in school is an impersonal educational method. Physical discipline in academic institutions is an indifferent approach to education. There are separate bathrooms and lavatories on the first and second floors. Distinct restrooms and washrooms are available on both the first and second levels. The butcher sold pork after cutting it with a large knife. The meat vendor sliced the pork with a cleaver before selling it. Words can be expanded into phrases or clauses. Vocabulary units can evolve into phrases or complete sentences. The voting age for elections is 19 or younger, which is the suffrage age. The legal age for casting ballots in elections is 19 or below, defining the suffrage limit. Looking at animals makes the volcanic eruption feel impending. Observing wildlife gives the impression that an eruption is imminent. The federal government distributed money to Texas and other states. The national administration allocated funds to Texas and various regions. Our company has an unwritten rule that we leave at 6 p.m. Our workplace follows an implicit guideline requiring departure at 6 p.m. Traveling abroad makes one apt to be influenced by foreign cultures. Overseas trips increase one's susceptibility to cultural influences. Believing that computers are always accurate is a fallacy. The assumption that computers are infallible is a misconception. The result of the general's responsible decision was disastrous. The outcome of the commander's prudent choice proved catastrophic. Plants cannot grow in the sterile land of the Middle East. Vegetation struggles to thrive in the arid soil of the Middle East. Metal can easily undergo corrosion from water and humidity. Metallic surfaces are highly prone to oxidation due to moisture exposure. Superman eventually revealed his identity to her. Superman ultimately disclosed his true self to her. The archer shot an arrow at a stationary target. The bowman launched a projectile toward a fixed mark. Her boundless benevolence changed the evil man. Her limitless kindness reformed the wicked individual. The ivy vine stretched over the mossy stone wall. The creeping ivy extended across the moss-covered stone barrier. The arriving passengers disembarked from the ship in an orderly fashion. The incoming travelers exited the vessel in a well-organized manner. North Korea tried to reactivate its nuclear facilities. North Korea attempted to resume operations at its atomic installations. I went to the park with my friend to accompany him. I visited the park alongside my friend to keep him company. Previously, we read the newspaper every morning. In the past, we perused the daily paper each morning. He looked at Picasso's painting with admiration. He gazed at Picasso's artwork with deep appreciation. He and I have a significantly large age difference. There is a considerable age gap between him and me. I felt a sense of familiarity when I first saw him. Upon first encountering him, I experienced a feeling of recognition. Our family planned an overseas trip during the holiday. Our household arranged an international journey for the vacation period. Now even the mafia must engage in legitimate businesses to survive. Nowadays, even criminal organizations must operate lawful enterprises to endure. The road is slippery due to the sleet that suddenly fell. The unexpected hail made the roadway dangerously slick. We occasionally reminisce about our childhood. From time to time, we reflect on our youth with nostalgia. The abandonment of pets has become a social issue. The desertion of animals has escalated into a public concern. The opposite of love is not hate, but indifference. The true contrast to affection is not hostility, but apathy. He received a deserved punishment for his wrongdoings. He was rightfully penalized for his misconduct. The U.S. sent special forces to rescue the hostage. The United States deployed elite troops for the hostage rescue operation. He knows an Aboriginal language of Africa. He is proficient in a native African dialect. A drowsy driver took a rest at the rest stop. A fatigued motorist paused for a break at the service area. I vacillated after listening to others and canceled it. I wavered after considering opinions and decided to call it off. The hunting dog chased after the trace of the deer. The tracking hound pursued the scent trail of the stag. TV becomes a distraction when trying to focus on studying. Television serves as a hindrance to concentration while studying. My boss is pessimistic about the new business. My employer holds a skeptical outlook on the startup venture. The insolent student slammed the door as he left. The disrespectful pupil forcefully shut the door upon exiting. After her greeting, a loud applause ensued from the audience. Following her salutation, a thunderous ovation erupted from the crowd. He often said absurd things, causing misunderstandings. He frequently uttered irrational statements, leading to confusion. After a tough workout, I felt thirsty. Following an intense exercise session, I experienced dehydration. There are many overlapping areas between mathematics and physics. Numerous intersecting fields exist between mathematics and physics. Due to inactivity in evolution, the wildfire grew larger. The wildfire expanded due to a lack of ecological adaptation. There was significant improvement in skills after participating in the competition. Substantial skill enhancement occurred following competition participation. Her words strained as she struggled to escape the harness. Her speech faltered as she desperately attempted to break free. His impassive expression to my joke is bewildering. His unresponsive demeanor to my joke is perplexing. My grandmother had many offspring and passed away. My grandmother left behind a large progeny before her passing. Due to the heavy snow, our village is currently inaccessible. The excessive snowfall has rendered our village unreachable. In the past, manure and urine increased the fertility of the land. Historically, compost and urine enhanced soil fertility. I think the athlete's retirement was premature. I believe the sportsman's withdrawal was untimely. I played outside for a long time, but my clothes are still unstained. Despite spending hours outdoors, my attire remains spotless. The brutal murder by the criminal inflamed the public. The heinous homicide committed by the felon outraged the masses. The city provides shelter to the indigent. The municipality offers refuge to the impoverished. The construction worker transported bricks and cement. The laborer hauled masonry blocks and concrete. Flammable substances like gasoline easily catch fire. Combustible materials such as petrol ignite rapidly. I waited impatiently for the movie to start. I anxiously anticipated the commencement of the film. The speaker shared an interesting anecdote of his own. The orator recounted a captivating personal story. She is really inflexible and very stubborn. She is exceedingly rigid and highly obstinate. Despite opposition, the government enforced the regulations. In defiance of resistance, the administration implemented the policies. The retina is the membrane located at the back of the eyeball. The retina is a thin tissue situated at the rear of the eye. His glasses are almost oblong, like a window. His spectacles are nearly rectangular, resembling a pane. After the war, a new conqueror ruled the country. Following the conflict, a fresh ruler dominated the nation. The housewife repeats the drudgery of daily household chores. The homemaker continuously endures the monotony of routine domestic tasks. Both the bank and the tenant claimed ownership of the house. The financial institution and the renter both asserted property rights over the residence. The Pokemon world is an illusory realm, not reality. The Pokemon universe is a fictional domain, detached from actuality. Dinosaurs are giant animals that became extinct a long time ago. Prehistoric reptiles of immense size vanished ages ago. The weather is capricious, with rain coming and going. The climate is unpredictable, with showers appearing intermittently. The eighth planet of the solar system, Neptune, is next after Uranus. The eighth celestial body in the solar system, Neptune, follows Uranus. I used insecticide to exterminate the bugs. I applied pesticide to eradicate the insects. Ulcer is a disease where holes form in internal organs. An ulcer is a medical condition that results in perforations in bodily tissues. The soldiers attacked the enemy and expelled them completely. The troops launched an assault on the adversary and drove them out entirely. His voice became hoarse from frequent speeches. His vocal cords strained due to continuous public addresses. He was sent to China as a missionary for evangelism. He was dispatched to China as a cleric for proselytization. We interchanged gifts on Christmas Day. We exchanged presents during the Christmas celebration. She is preoccupied with quilting and does nothing but quilt. She is absorbed in quilting and engages in no other activity. The journalist wrote an exclusive article for the newspaper. The reporter composed a unique editorial for the publication. The linguist I know speaks 4 languages. The polyglot I am acquainted with is proficient in 4 tongues. I specialize in realty brokerage, among other things. My expertise includes property mediation along with various other fields. A story that coheres is easy to read and understand. A well-structured narrative is simple to comprehend. He majored in electronics, like semiconductors. His field of study was electronic engineering, particularly in semiconductors. The horse that fell into the marsh couldn't get out. The stallion trapped in the swamp was unable to escape. The choir sang an anthem at the church. The vocal ensemble performed a hymn at the chapel. The nun was always gracious to the children. The sister consistently showed kindness to the young ones. The mechanism of the old man's pocket watch is very complex. The inner workings of the elderly man's timepiece are highly intricate. I don't want to interfere with other people's decisions. I prefer not to meddle in others' choices. I only have partial knowledge about that topic. My understanding of that subject is limited. He is good at lying. Therein lies the cause of the conflict. His deceitfulness is the root of the dispute. She neatly displayed a variety of merchandise. She meticulously arranged an assortment of goods. Our home is a comfortable haven for the family. Our residence serves as a serene retreat for our family. The tyrant suppressed freedom of expression for the people. The despot curtailed the populace's right to free speech. He announced his marriage to Johansson to his relatives. He informed his family members of his union with Johansson. She goes to church on Sundays due to her Catholicism. Her adherence to Catholicism compels her to attend church on Sundays. White clouds patch across the blue sky. Fluffy white clouds scatter across the azure expanse. The article written in the newspaper was biased. The published editorial exhibited partiality. I bought the product after being tricked by the salesperson's persuasion. I purchased the item after falling victim to the vendor's rhetoric. Your hairstyle is a bit weird, but it looks good. Your coiffure is somewhat unconventional, yet it suits you well. All the royalty gathered at the palace on the king's birthday. The entire royal family convened at the castle for the monarch's anniversary. The police officer wrenched the suspect's arm behind his back. The law enforcement agent forcefully twisted the detainee's arm behind him. A house is built with materials such as clay, bricks, and cement. A dwelling is constructed using substances like soil, masonry, and concrete. The strong light from my flashlight dazzled his eyes. The intense beam from my torch momentarily blinded his vision. A migraine is not at all a tolerable pain. A severe headache is entirely unbearable. Mount Baekdu was covered with lush trees. The slopes of Mount Baekdu were blanketed in dense foliage. I went to my high school reunion for the first time after graduation. I attended my alumni gathering for the first time post-graduation. The boss placed his signature on the final contract. The executive affixed his autograph to the conclusive agreement. The dew on the leaves vaporized in the sunlight. The morning moisture on the foliage dissipated under the sun's rays. What he survived in the plane crash was truly miraculous. His survival from the aviation disaster was nothing short of a miracle. Number 750 is made up of 3 digits. The figure 750 consists of 3 numerical characters. Traveling abroad has now become commonplace in Korea. Overseas trips are now a standard practice in South Korea. I was surprised by his shameless demand for money. His brazen request for financial support astounded me. He manifested his dissatisfaction with the food. He openly expressed his discontent with the meal. She tightly wrung the washed clothes to squeeze out the water. She firmly twisted the laundered garments to extract moisture. He endowed the nursing home with rice and money every year. He annually donated grains and funds to the elderly care facility. Should we reduce physical infliction for education? Ought we to minimize corporal punishment in academic settings? His explanation revealed a lack of cognition of reality. His justification exposed an absence of awareness of actuality. I became a billionaire after succeeding in the shopping mall business. I attained billionaire status following triumph in the retail industry. The comrade's funeral was held with solemnity. The soldier's memorial service proceeded with great reverence. The drama gradually headed toward its climax. The theatrical production steadily advanced toward its peak. Indiscriminate development led to the depletion of resources. Uncontrolled expansion resulted in the exhaustion of natural assets. Paying taxes is something all citizens are obliged to do. Contributing taxes is a mandatory duty for all residents. He was so irresponsible that he was willing to forsake his family. His recklessness led him to abandon his loved ones. I wanted to take revenge on him because of his grudge. I sought retribution against him due to his resentment. The thief was sentenced to imprisonment in court. The burglar received a jail sentence during the trial. The clock is wrong, so a time adjustment is necessary. The incorrect timepiece requires calibration. A rebellion against the government broke out nationwide. An uprising erupted across the nation in defiance of the administration. She felt like an outcast because she had no friends. She experienced alienation due to her lack of companionship. The school has explicit rules that must be followed. The institution enforces well-defined regulations that are mandatory. That dog is so aggressive that it barks when it sees people. The canine is highly territorial and growls upon encountering strangers. The salesperson persuades customers with multiple methods. The merchant employs various tactics to convince potential buyers. Both the hero and the heroine are famous actors. The lead male and female protagonists are renowned performers. I had a heat stroke after exercising in the hot weather. I suffered from heat exhaustion following physical activity in extreme temperatures. We found a mutually satisfactory compromise. We reached a mutually agreeable resolution. I made a furrow in the field using an ox. I plowed a trench in the farmland with the help of an ox. He needs an English translator for trade. He requires an interpreter proficient in English for commercial dealings. The sunlight caused the evaporation of the water in the dish. The solar heat induced the liquid in the container to vaporize. I saw hallucinations after I hit my head. I experienced visual distortions after sustaining a head injury. An owl is a type of nocturnal bird that is active at night. The owl belongs to a classification of avian species that thrives in darkness. Put all the ingredients into the blender and mix them. Combine all components in the mixer and blend thoroughly. After exercising, my body was completely drenched in sweat. Following a workout, my body was entirely soaked in perspiration. In court, the juror did not accept the defendant's argument. During the trial, the jury member rejected the accused's plea. The slaves cringed in front of their merciless master. The enslaved individuals cowered before their ruthless owner. My friend turned out to be a hypocrite who deceived me. My acquaintance was revealed to be a deceitful pretender. The patent I applied for is pending at the patent office. My submitted intellectual property request is under review at the Patent Bureau. The death penalty is a contentious topic in Korea. Capital punishment remains a highly debated issue in South Korea. The amendment of legislation requires approval from the National Assembly. Modifying statutory laws necessitates consent from the legislature. She tried to soothe the crying child. She attempted to pacify the weeping youngster. This small English dictionary contains a meager vocabulary. This compact English lexicon comprises a limited word bank. Yesterday, a devastating earthquake occurred in Japan. A catastrophic tremor struck Japan the previous day. She was deeply grateful for your help. She expressed profound appreciation for your assistance. I have animosity toward the person who criticized me. I harbor resentment against the individual who disparaged me. She interpreted the English sentences during the English class. She translated the English phrases in real time during the language lesson. He touched the camel in the zoo's enclosure. He reached out and petted the camel inside the zoo's habitat. He had a diverse experience while traveling abroad. He gained a wide range of experiences during his international journeys. Both the Antarctic and Arctic regions are covered in ice. The polar regions of Antarctica and the Arctic are blanketed in glacial sheets. He is stuck in his own world and never goes outside. He remains isolated in his bubble and refuses to step outdoors. He was dismissed from the company due to incapacity. He was terminated from his job because of incompetence. The KTX train ensures its scheduled arrival time. The KTX guarantees punctuality in its arrival schedule. Nuclear bombs release radioactive materials. Atomic explosives emit hazardous radioactive substances. The firefighters tried to extinguish the fire. The emergency responders attempted to put out the blaze. In matriarchy, the woman was the leader of the community. In a female-dominated society, the woman governed the community. He was diagnosed with cancer through a precise diagnosis. He received an accurate medical assessment confirming his cancer. We always agonize over the future. We constantly fret about what lies ahead. Thomas Jefferson wrote the U.S. Declaration of Independence. Thomas Jefferson authored the American Declaration of Independence. I called the restaurant to confirm the pizza order. I contacted the eatery to verify my pizza request. The psychologist analyzed the motive of the criminal. The mental health expert examined the perpetrator's intent. The UN imposed financial and trade sanctions on North Korea. The United Nations enforced economic and commercial restrictions on North Korea. The journalists sensationalized the celebrity's marriage. The reporter exaggerated the public figure's wedding for drama. His suit and shoes looked shabby because they were old. His attire appeared worn out due to its age. The doctor studied the dietary habits of obese people. The physician examined the nutritional behaviors of overweight individuals. The woodcutter cut a bough to make a temporary shelter. The lumberjack trimmed a large branch to construct a makeshift refuge. He asked the doctor about side effects after cosmetic surgery. He inquired with the physician regarding complications following aesthetic surgery. I was a scaredy cat to the point of being afraid of dogs. I was excessively timid to the extent of fearing canines. Credit cards are much more convenient than cash. Payment via credit is significantly more practical than using paper currency. He acted with dishonesty, so I don't trust him. His deceitful behavior led to my lack of confidence in him. The boxer delivered a telling blow to his opponent. The fighter landed a decisive strike against his adversary. The egg and sperm meet, leading to fertilization and pregnancy. The fusion of an ovum and sperm initiates conception and gestation. I saw the phantom of my deceased father in a dream. In my dream, I encountered the apparition of my late father. The lawyer tried to attest to his innocence. The attorney attempted to provide testimony in support of his client's exoneration. His representation of the sunset is excellent. His depiction of the twilight scenery is outstanding. Loyalty to the country and filial piety to parents are important values. Patriotism and devotion to parents are fundamental principles. Even after taking fever medicine, there was no abatement in my body temperature. Despite consuming antipyretic medication, my fever remained unchanged. The choir's dissonance made their singing terrible to listen to. The choir's lack of harmony rendered their performance unbearable. This year, the deficient rainfall has caused the crops not to grow. The inadequate precipitation this year has hindered agricultural growth. To maintain the ecological balance of the wetland, invasive species were removed. Alien organisms were eradicated to preserve the wetland's ecosystem. People who contracted the epidemic were isolated in hospitals. Individuals infected by the outbreak were quarantined in medical facilities. He was awarded a certificate for his meritorious actions. He received official recognition for his commendable deeds. We are interacting with various people in our daily life. We engage with a diverse range of individuals in everyday situations. The castle is impregnable thanks to the sturdy walls. The fortress remains impenetrable due to its reinforced defenses. He received an acceptance letter from the school. He obtained an admission confirmation from the institution. After cutting the fabric, she stitched it together to make clothes. She sewed the textile pieces together after trimming them for garment production. The venomous snake bit his foot, and he nearly died. The poisonous serpent struck his foot, nearly costing him his life. He was frustrated by his low math scores. His poor mathematics performance left him feeling disheartened. If you can't speak English, you will experience a linguistic barrier abroad. Lack of English proficiency may lead to communication difficulties overseas. I got a severe stomachache after eating rotten food. Consuming spoiled food resulted in intense abdominal pain. The new clothes constricted and became smaller after washing. The freshly bought garments shrank and tightened post-wash. Recently, her popularity has waned compared to before. Lately, her fame has diminished in contrast to the past. Slavery is an amoral institution in modern society. The practice of human enslavement is an unethical system in today's world. The government maintains the equilibrium of supply and demand. The administration regulates the balance between market supply and consumer demand. The world agreed to ban biochemical weapons. Nations collectively decided to prohibit biological and chemical arms. The newlyweds are looking for a way to curtail expenses. The married couple is seeking methods to minimize expenditures. She is quite adept at playing the drums. She is highly skilled in percussion performance. He cleaned the messy room thoroughly with a vacuum cleaner. He meticulously tidied up the cluttered space using a vacuum. The construction worker installed a fire detector on the ceiling. The builder mounted a smoke alarm onto the overhead surface. An astronaut is a scientist who explores space. A cosmonaut is a researcher engaged in space exploration. I saved the data on a portable USB device. I stored the information onto a removable flash drive. A brisk pace makes the person next to you feel energetic as well. Walking swiftly enhances the vigor of those around you. She sneered at my New Year's diet goal. She mocked my resolution to lose weight. The vice chairman will preside over tonight's meeting. The deputy chairperson will lead the discussion at this evening's assembly. He immediately retorted to my opinion. He promptly countered my viewpoint. The large corporation expanded its market dominance. The major enterprise strengthened its industry supremacy. The carpenter cut down the withered tree in the garden. The woodworker felled the dried-out tree in the backyard. The voters expressed their apathy toward politics. The electorate displayed indifference to governmental affairs. The expert has thorough knowledge of the topic. The specialist possesses comprehensive expertise on the subject. The coastline is slightly inclined towards the sea. The shore gently slopes in the direction of the ocean. For a decade, no one was able to break the champion's record. Over 10 years, the title holder's achievement remained unchallenged. We fortified the village in preparation for an attack. We reinforced the settlement to defend against potential assaults. She possesses 5 sports cars. She owns a collection of 5 luxury racing vehicles. The earthquake caused our house to slant to one side. The seismic tremor tilted our home unevenly. I met my current spouse through a matchmaker. I was introduced to my life partner via an arranged matchmaking service. No one knows what the conclusion of the debate will be. The final outcome of the discussion remains uncertain to all. He enclosed the garden with thorn bushes. He surrounded the yard with prickly shrubs for protection. She contracted the virulent disease of colon cancer. She was diagnosed with the aggressive illness of colorectal cancer. He is an intern recognized by the ceramic artisan. He is an apprentice acknowledged by the master potter. There is a saying that good medicine tastes bitterness. A common proverb states that effective remedies often taste bitter. The police car blared its horn at the fleeing vehicle. The patrol vehicle sounded its siren at the escaping car. The future of the diligent young man looked very hopeful. The prospects of the hardworking youth appeared promising. Our company and a competitive company made the same product. Both our firm and a rival corporation produced an identical item. The difficult math problem made him feel discouraged. The complex numerical equation left him feeling disheartened. Her bead necklace rattled as it swayed. Her beaded jewelry clinked as it shifted. The general decided on the new deployment of the troops. The commander planned a strategic repositioning of the soldiers. He was captured as a prisoner and fell into captivity. He was taken hostage and subjected to confinement. This bullet can easily penetrate a steel plate. This projectile can effortlessly pierce through a metal sheet. The government releases the unemployment rate statistics every month. The administration publishes joblessness figures on a monthly basis. I really appreciate your assistance when I was in trouble. I am deeply grateful for your support during my hardships. The essential preparations for a voyage are a map and a compass. Fundamental travel necessities for a journey include a chart and a navigational tool. He was so surprised that he stared at her dumbly for a while. He was so astonished that he gazed at her speechlessly for a moment. I heartily agree with her opinion. I wholeheartedly concur with her perspective. We have the responsibility to uphold tradition. It is our duty to preserve cultural heritage. The criminal who kidnapped the president demanded a huge ransom. The abductor who seized the head of state requested an enormous payoff. The bride's generosity finally changed the criminal. The bride's compassion ultimately reformed the offender. The patient received intensive care day and night. The ill individual underwent round-the-clock critical treatment. Honestly, I was embarrassed by his sudden question. Truthfully, his abrupt inquiry left me flustered. After the king died, the country was in a state of anarchy. The nation plunged into chaos following the monarch's demise. I am under unrelenting pressure from my boss due to work. My superior constantly imposes relentless stress on me because of my tasks. Traveling is a good way to break the monotony of daily life. Exploring new places effectively disrupts the dullness of routine existence. He hurried and tripped over a threshold, falling down. In his haste, he stumbled over the doorway and fell. The U.S. built a barrier on the frontier with Canada. The United States constructed a blockade along its border with Canada. When we first met, we broke the inhibition through a game. Our initial meeting eased awkwardness with an ice-breaking activity. There are no insurmountable problems for us, he said. No obstacle is beyond our ability to overcome, he declared. My mom inoculated the baby against polio. My mother administered a polio vaccination to the infant. He is sincere enough for his words and actions to be trustworthy. His honesty and integrity make his statements and deeds reliable. We must be wary of political extremists. We should remain vigilant against radical political ideologies. I fought under adverse conditions with one arm unusable. I engaged in battle despite unfavorable circumstances and an impaired arm. Salt and sugar are indispensable ingredients in cooking. Sodium and sucrose are essential components in culinary preparations. Recently, the weather has been unpredictable, according to the meteorological office. The climate has shown erratic patterns lately, as per meteorologists. The house's interior needs an overall alteration. The residence's inside requires a comprehensive renovation. There are many funny composite photos on the internet. Numerous amusing digitally manipulated images are available online. The bar is in a disorderly state because of the drunken customer's rampage. The pub is in chaos due to the intoxicated patron's outburst. This pension has many recreation facilities, such as a ping pong table. This lodging offers various recreational amenities, including a table tennis setup. To improve your English, you must practice it constantly. In order to enhance your proficiency in English, continuous practice is essential. The newspaper strives for the fairness of its articles. The publication endeavors to maintain impartiality in its reports. Samsung and Apple promised to cooperate. Samsung and Apple pledged to engage in collaboration. The mouse easily escaped the complex maze. The rodent effortlessly navigated its way out of the intricate labyrinth. The company transferred money to the insurance claimant. The corporation remitted funds to the insurance beneficiary. The role of the prosecution is the implementation of social righteousness. The duty of the prosecution lies in upholding justice within society. The suspect cleverly eluded the police. The accused skillfully evaded law enforcement. Illegal immigrants must forthwith return to their home country. Unauthorized migrants are required to repatriate without delay. The price of coffee being 100,000 won is outrageous. It is absurd that the cost of coffee amounts to 100,000 won. We trained hard for the optimal result. We underwent rigorous training to achieve the best possible outcome. The king walked in front of his ministers with majesty. The monarch strode before his courtiers with regal dignity. The people demanded the separation of politics and religion. The populace called for the division between governance and faith. Hangul is recognized as a superb alphabet in the world. Hangul is acknowledged globally as an exceptional writing system. My friend was so late that her rage exploded. My companion's tardiness led to an outburst of fury. The Bank of Korea issued 100,000 won currency notes. The Central Bank of Korea released 100,000 won banknotes. Housewives are busy with their daily chores and have no time to rest. Homemakers remain occupied with household duties, leaving no room for respite. The doctor applied anesthetic to the patient before surgery. The physician administered anesthesia to the patient prior to the operation. She devoted her life to the orphans. She committed her entire existence to the welfare of orphans. After calculating the meal cost, I received a receipt. Upon computing the dining expenses, I was issued a receipt. The witch can manipulate people with spells. The sorceress possesses the ability to control individuals through incantations. Understanding parameters is important in function problems. Comprehending variables is crucial when dealing with function-related issues. The nurse injected a painkiller into the patient with a headache. The medical attendant administered an analgesic to the patient suffering from a headache. People are increasingly dependent on their mobile phones. Individuals are becoming progressively reliant on their smartphones. The soldier is always alert for enemy attacks. The serviceman remains perpetually vigilant against hostile assaults. He had an unfortunate childhood, growing up as an outsider. He endured a troubled upbringing, spending his youth in social isolation. The terrorist sabotaged the peace talks. The extremist deliberately disrupted the diplomatic negotiations. Children in Africa suffer from starvation. Youngsters in Africa endure severe malnutrition. She repressed her feelings of love for him. She suppressed her affectionate emotions toward him. The truck hit the pedestrian walking on the sidewalk. The lorry collided with a passerby strolling along the pavement. Modern humans are suffering from many adult diseases due to obesity. Contemporary individuals are afflicted with numerous lifestyle diseases owing to excessive weight. He showed tolerance toward my mistake. He exhibited leniency regarding my error. The madman was sent to a psychiatrist. The mentally unstable individual was referred to a psychiatric specialist. The massive discount spurred consumer purchasing desire. The substantial markdown stimulated consumer spending inclination. The district office set up a milestone for hikers. The municipal authority established a landmark for trekkers. She is at the age of learning to walk after passing infancy. She has reached the stage of ambulation following infancy. He suffers from stomach problems and is stricken every day. He endures gastric ailments and experiences distress daily. The pharmacist at the pharmacy filled the prescription. The apothecary at the drugstore dispensed the prescribed medication. The murderer, caught by the police, confessed to the crime. The felon, apprehended by law enforcement, admitted his wrongdoing. The fingerprints at the crime scene are evidence of his guilt. The forensic imprints found at the crime location serve as proof of his culpability. I paid a fine for violating traffic laws. I remitted a penalty for breaching road regulations. He read the feature article published in the Sunday newspaper. He perused the in-depth report featured in the Sunday edition. The politician's oratory moved the audience. The statesman's eloquence deeply stirred the spectators. The transfusion during surgery saved the patient's life. The blood transfusion administered during the operation preserved the patient's life. The flag on the flagpole fluttered in the wind. The banner atop the mast billowed in the breeze. I found a way to reconcile the two people who fought. I discovered a means to mediate between the two disputants. Exposure to violent media increases aggression. Prolonged exposure to aggressive content exacerbates hostility. I majored in architecture for building houses at university. I pursued a degree in architectural studies to specialize in residential construction. I've never heard his actual voice. I have never listened to the authentic timbre of his voice. He magnified the germs with an electron microscope. He enlarged the microorganisms utilizing an electron microscope. He described the human brain by analogy to a computer. He illustrated the workings of the human brain through a computer analogy. The company's deficit inevitably led to layoffs. The corporation's financial shortfall unavoidably resulted in workforce reductions. I cannot accept a unilateral decision, not an agreement. I refuse to comply with an arbitrary ruling rather than a mutual accord. The soldiers marched with a stately stride. The troops advanced with a dignified pace. My truck had a breakdown today, so I couldn't make the delivery. My vehicle experienced a mechanical failure, preventing me from completing the shipment. The congregation listened to the pastor's sermon patiently. The assembly attentively absorbed the clergyman's homily. His adoptive parents were better than his biological ones. His guardians by adoption proved more nurturing than his natural parents. Teenagers are legally prohibited from drinking and smoking. Adolescents are legally barred from consuming alcohol and tobacco. The professor and students had an interactive discussion. The academic and learners engaged in a dynamic exchange of ideas. The firefighters connected the hose to the hydrant. The emergency responders attached the hose to the water outlet. Do not place combustible items next to the heater. Refrain from positioning flammable objects adjacent to the heating device. I used my precious time productively. I utilized my invaluable time efficiently. The appraiser appraised the value of the diamond. The valuation expert assessed the worth of the gemstone. The sentiment of Koreans towards Japan is not good. The perception of South Koreans regarding Japan remains unfavorable. The factory manager found a suitable location for building the factory. The industrial supervisor identified an appropriate site for the facility's construction. The monk's austere life is admirable. The ascetic lifestyle of the monk is worthy of admiration. The island was originally populated by indigenous people. The territory was initially inhabited by native inhabitants. Please submit your application within the enrollment period. Kindly turn in your registration form during the designated admission phase. The smell of the person next to me's cigarette permeated my clothes. The odor of the adjacent individual's cigarette infiltrated my attire. The farmers are picking red apples in the orchard. The agricultural workers are harvesting crimson apples in the grove. The sudden cancellation of the event caused a controversy. The abrupt annulment of the occasion sparked a dispute. She is warm-hearted and takes good care of others. She possesses a compassionate nature and attentively nurtures those around her. I avoid the meeting for the sake of avoidance of any misunderstanding. I refrain from attending the gathering to preclude any misinterpretation. The Korean team qualified for the World Cup final. The South Korean squad secured a place in the World Cup championship match. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news. I wish to avoid being the messenger of unfortunate tidings. The wizard animated Pinocchio made of wood. The sorcerer imbued life into the wooden figure of Pinocchio. The lioness snarled at the leopard to protect her cub. The lioness growled menacingly at the leopard to safeguard her offspring. I was ashamed for cheating on the final exam. I felt deep remorse for engaging in dishonesty during the final assessment. Please insert a 501 coin into the slit of the arcade machine. Kindly deposit a 501 token into the slot of the gaming apparatus. He repeatedly muttered words like a tape recorder. He incessantly murmured phrases in a monotonous manner. Your argument is just an overactive imagination. Your assertion is merely an exaggeration fueled by an overactive mind. She changed the layout of the furniture in the house because it's spring. She rearranged the household furnishings to welcome the arrival of spring. The result of the vote wasn't different from my expectation. The outcome of the ballot aligned with my anticipation. The Child Association takes care of neglected children. The Children's Welfare Organization provides care for abandoned minors. The diver discovered a wreck in the deep seabed. The underwater explorer unearthed a shipwreck on the ocean floor. A genius refers to someone with superior intellect. A prodigy denotes an individual possessing exceptional cognitive ability. Due to construction, we took a diversion route. Because of ongoing infrastructure work, we opted for an alternate pathway. She is a business consultant who advises companies. She serves as a corporate advisor, offering strategic guidance to firms. Her outlet for her overflowing talent was dance. She expressed her abundant artistry through the medium of dance. He worked hard, but success seemed unlikely. Despite his diligent efforts, achievement appeared improbable. These days, bus passengers commonly use card transit cards. Nowadays, commuters predominantly rely on electronic fare cards. An anonymous donor gave money to the charity. A benevolent benefactor contributed funds to the philanthropic organization anonymously. China worries about the effects of overpopulation. The Chinese government expresses concern over the repercussions of demographic overgrowth. She remodeled the house using her aesthetic sense. She renovated the residence employing her refined artistic sensibility. The old diesel truck emitted harmful fumes. The aging diesel vehicle released toxic emissions into the air. The spacecraft probed the soil and atmosphere of Mars. The interstellar vessel examined the Martian terrain and atmospheric composition. The famous actress's dress was truly gorgeous. The renowned actress donned an exquisitely stunning gown. I felt wretched because I had no money at all. I experienced utter misery due to my complete lack of financial resources. The young child believes the guardian will protect him. The juvenile trusts that his caretaker will ensure his safety. After the judge mulled over the evidence, he delivered a verdict to the defendant. After meticulously analyzing the presented proof, the magistrate rendered a judgment upon the accused.